You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody, the podcast that explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. Quick last-minute holiday lights. Check out my guy Noah at Epic Holidays. We just had him do our lights recently. I know we were late getting to it, but he came and he did a fantastic job. It literally took around an hour. He, again, did a really, really good job. I really liked the guy. My wife really liked working with him as well, and I just like supporting him. So again, it's Epic Holiday. I'll put his number at the bottom here, but give him a holler if you guys are looking for last-minute holiday lights. Again, he did a great job at my house. My guest today is one of the most interesting individuals I've spoken with in a really long time. He's the CEO of Cedar Creek Wealth, which is a storage facility syndication all throughout the United States. He's I believe, 6th generation Idahoan. He lives locally, and he is working on a project right at the corner of Beacon and 55. He had incredible insights into what's actually happening in the community, not just what people want or what the community is now, but what the master plan for this entire community kind of is, and where he fits in that and what he wants to see for the community that, again, he lives in as well. So again, I really enjoyed speaking with him. I'm gonna have to listen to this one over again to catch all the nuances, but again, really appreciated his time. And if anybody has differing perspectives, I would absolutely be open to having residents come in and talk to me about what they see for the future of this area, what they see for the future of Eagle, for this, again, farmland that we're kind of on, hence Dry Creek Ranch, and just keep the conversation going, because again, that's what's going to bring the most people to the table and get the most people happy and most people's needs met, which is great. But again, without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, AJ Osborne. First off, thank you for coming, sir. I appreciate
happy
you.
to be here.
Here's to you.
Yeah, thank you.
How did you get into self-storage?
So, long time ago, I got into it through my dad. So it's funny because he sold insurance, right? My dad's originally from Hayburn, Idaho. I'm originally from, and my mom's was from Burley. And so that's where we live. I'm like a 6th generation Idahoan or something. I don't know. We came across in the wagon. I have no clue. So it's, we've been here forever. My dad, he grew up in extreme poverty. So not like people think of poverty today. Like he poached to eat. They didn't have running water. And my dad's not old, right? I mean, he's 65. Right? It's not like we're talking about the 1800s, right? No, this was, he grew up in the 60s. And they had nothing, right? In this rural poverty town of Idaho. So he went to get out of poverty, and he did it through selling insurance. And he thought, this is my escape. I'm going to build a life for my wife and my now child, who's me. And so he started selling insurance. And I grew up, and that's what my dad did. He worked for big insurance companies, then he worked for a brokerage firm, and then he left and started his own brokerage firm. And I grew up, when I was 15, I was driving around the state of Idaho going to open enrollment meetings at schools, sitting there with my dad, as he stood up, and I just sat there in the corner and did little things, and he talked benefits. So I went to school in Rexburg, and then I got back and I started working for a company called Aflac over there, the one with the duck, and then for another brokerage firm, and then I came over here to sell insurance with my dad. And I grew up here. I grew up on the Eagle exit. My dad left. They left Burley when I was little, and so I grew up on the Eagle exit. At the time, that's where I hunted. So I duck hunted off the Eagle exit. There was nothing. There was no hospital. There was no gas station. Eagle was 2 lanes. There was no lights. There were stop signs, right? There's nothing out there. And then I started selling insurance when I got married, and me and my wife moved back here, and I sold group medical insurance with him. And about that time, insurance is great because it gave us that control, right? It was like, I feel like I'm in charge of my income because if I want to make more, I can sell more. It's not like a normal job. I didn't have a W-2. It was commission. So if I sold, I got paid. If not, you didn't. right? So it was like you're in control, but at the same time, it was not really like stable income, things like that. And I think my dad was like, hey, we need to find something else. So him and his partner bought a storage facility in Idaho Falls. And then after that, he was like, I like this. Let's do more of this. I don't want to do it partner. And so I was actually at the time trying to get like multifamily because people remember at the time that was when the craze was with housing. So a bunch of my buddies had bought homes and were renting them out, and everybody it felt like was, getting rich off single families. And I was like, well, maybe we could get like small multifamily or something. And he's like, no, let's do this. And to be honest, dude, I didn't even really know what storage was. I'd never been in one, never seen one. You're talking early 2000s. Most people didn't use storage, right? And he showed me a lot of the aspects about it and what it was. And at the time, most people perceived storage as a junkyard. That was it. It was just like, these things are junkyards, right? And it was like, we could buy these things and make them better, right? And so we started doing that while we were selling insurance. And then we got really into it after 2010. We ended up selling the brokerage firm. I've owned multiple other companies, including I started another brokerage firm, sold that. And everything we always did, we did gyms, we had service-based business, online companies, but we've always just poured it back into storage, always. And our whole idea and our whole thing with storage and how we got involved with it was, this isn't a real estate asset. That was my fundamental belief. This is an actual functioning and operating business. We don't have tenants, we have customers. We're here to service the customers, the community. So our business model was, we were buying underperforming assets and making them nice. So like we bought one up in Coeur d'Alene, and it was a junk. It was an eyesore. So we came in, we bought it, we worked with the city, we tore down the whole front, we built we changed everything. We made it this really, really nice thing because we believe that people want to utilize nice things and it benefits the community, and we can still get paid at a higher amount if we make it nicer. And that's our whole model. So we brought the first, what would be considered luxury storage to Idaho, right? Which just means they were doing this in California, they were doing this in Southern California, they were doing this in Seattle, where they were building storage facilities that didn't look like storage facilities, right? And we were the first ones to bring in that kind of concept. And we put one in Meridian off Franklin Road, and people walked in and they were just like, this thing is amazing. Like, somebody's like, this is like the 5-star of storage. Like, we don't know whether we should store or live in it, right? And that was that's the whole thing. That's what we do. We service a higher customer and a higher client, right? Idaho has lots and lots of storage, and they're huge and they're kind of sprawling, right? Things like that. We don't do that. We do more of niche, service-based, really high end, and that played so well over the last 15 years because the storage industry was changing. It was leaving this junkyard feel, right? And it was coming up into something new. And we really rode that wave, and we focus a lot on technology. We own a tech company in the self-storage space, which is a property management company, which we owned and we're founding members of. We're also founding members and owners of the largest self-storage co-op in the world. I sit on the board. We're very involved in the industry. I have the number 1 top-selling book in the world on self-storage, and also the number 1 podcast associated with it. So it's not like we do this on the side and we thought we make quick bucks, things like, no, we're very involved in anything we do, industry-wide, community-wide. When we were selling our insurance, right, we worked with local business owners. That's what we did everything up until just a few years ago. So I actually became paralyzed, a quadriplegic.
You personally?
Yeah. I was hooked to tubes. So I have all my scars and belly buttons. I was on life support for months. I became a quadriplegic overnight, and I was working for a major insurance company that we had sold our brokerage firm too. And so I was working for this brokerage firm, and I'd become paralyzed overnight, quadriplegic. And after I started to come back, and after I had to relearn how to do everything, walk, and I couldn't even talk when I was on tubes. I couldn't breathe, nothing. And so then as I came back and I went home after I was released after 3.5 months, I went home paralyzed in bed. And then I lost my job in the hospital. And when I was coming back, that's when we started to say, I was so just kind of like overwhelmed at the overall position that I was in, because I didn't lose my house, right? I didn't, like, my kids, to them, they're going through this horrific thing where they didn't even know. I didn't even see my kids for a long time because we didn't know if I was going to even make it or not. So they didn't know what to tell the kids. So it was just dad sick in the hospital while I was on life support. And then once they came in and started seeing it, it's like, hey, we have this new reality. But other than obviously this huge thing, we didn't lose the house. My wife didn't have to leave our 4 children. We just had our 4th child. So he was 3 months. And so once, we didn't have to uproot them. We didn't have to do all that stuff. And I was like, man, this is really impactful. Why? Because even though I had been fired, we had cash flowing assets from real estate, things like that. So because of that, I started more of our private equity side, where we allowed other people to come in and invest alongside with us, all doing the same model. So then it became, we even took it to kind of another level, and we got way more involved, and we've been building it out. So, we're very, everything we do, but what we do is very important to us. We don't do things halfway. And we come from a background, I think, in insurance, a very high level, working with businesses all over the state of Idaho. We were the largest brokerage firm in the state of Idaho, and business owners. And, we got to see these businesses and what worked and what didn't work. And it was always the same things, right? It was quality always, both in people and in business. But most importantly, our business was created off relationships. Yeah, that's everything. And I often tell people, your number one asset is the relationships you have. It's not the actual physical assets. So for us, we spend a lot of time doing that and building and working with other people, right? That's why I'm sitting here with you today, because we want to be open, and we want to talk to people about what our company's doing and get involvement. It's really important. So yeah, that's how we got into storage. That's how I do what I do now. Kind of a long story, but been doing this for a long time. I live here in Eagle, so I live right down the road here. And it's, we love the community, and we love what we do, and we're pretty proud of it.
That's why. I mean, if I may ask, what was the recovery from being quadriplegic? Like, did you?
Yeah, it was called
how did you?
Guillain-Barré is what happened, and what it was called. So Guillain-Barré is something that it's not like you normally think of things like diseases. It's a trigger mechanism. So your white blood cells are triggered by something, then your white blood cells get confused, and they think that your central nervous system is the threat that they're attacking. So it starts producing white blood cells like 100 times. And then my body severed the connection from my brain to my body. They destroyed my central nervous system. And so I was normal one day, and then the next day, my legs just stopped working. And my God. Yeah, it took them a long time to figure it out. By the time I figured it out, I was put into a coma and put onto life support. And
when did this happen?
So this was over 5 years ago. I'm still partially paralyzed in my lower legs. I got to deal with pain and everything every day, but I couldn't be happier or grateful. The fact that I'm walking around, I got out of my leg braces, and my I don't need to have apparatuses to walk anymore, things like that, and that's huge, right? That was more than we thought. We thought I'd be in. Once I got out of the wheelchair, and once I started walking with help, I had my leg braces on. And that made it so I looked like I could walk normal, right? Which was awesome. And that's actually for the rehab centers and the doctors. They're like, this is it. right? Like we've made it. And I was totally fine with that. The fact that I wasn't in my wheelchair anymore, I was happy. But they didn't ever think it was like, at that point, they're like, you're never getting out of leg braces. You're never not going to need a cane to walk. And so I just stopped going to rehab at that point. I'm like, well, there's no reason to go. But me and the kids, we just kept working on it. And we just tried to keep living life as normal. I did lots of therapeutic stuff like stem cells and all sorts of different stuff like that I've been working on, and then got out of my leg braces. So still have I'm not like what you might say the best runner. But I got to be careful on walking on uneven ground or ice, everything like that. But I'm walking, man. So
right. Talk about a shift in perspective.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, it's always
100%.
It's always the kind of thing where so I do a lot of jiu-jitsu. I've done it for years and years, and it's the kind of thing where I'm always frustrated with something that I might not be doing well, or some, just some stupid thing. And without fail, every time I got seriously injured, like I've had several really bad knee injuries, and that took me out for months. I mean, one took me out for 6 months, and I was hobbling around, going to students' houses and working on SAT stuff. But every time that happens, it's like, dude, that thing I was working on, or that thing I was annoyed about, it's like, it's nothing compared to not being able to go at all, or not being able, like, it's always interesting to me. And I always screw up my MCL or LCL. And whenever you turn a corner, right, like you're walking straight and then you make a left, you actually swing your leg and you don't know it. You your outside leg kind of whips around, and it puts strain on your inside ligament. And every time that would happen, it's like, God, to be able to do this without extreme pain, just walk around. Yeah. It changes your perspective. And that's nothing compared to what you went through.
Yeah, I was talking, every once in a while I kind of remember, because, every day I wake up because of pain.
Right.
So I have to, it's been too long since I've had my pain meds, and so I wake up and it's like I get out of bed, and getting started during the day for me is like an event. I hobble over to the bathtub, I try to get warm water going, right? Try to get my legs to move again, because it's like weird. It's like they freeze up and almost go back. It's like the fascia, everything else like that, right? And I was thinking the other day, I was like, man, I used to wake up and not be in, like, first of all, not be in pain, but like wake up and like, oh, let's get going. Let's get the day started, right? And it's little things like that we really forget about. I mean, I remember the first time I took a drink of water. I tell a story all the time because it was so crazy to me. Because when you're on life support, I couldn't drink, I couldn't speak, I couldn't do anything, right? Well, I'm getting IV, so I'm getting fluids, but your body doesn't understand that. My lips are bleeding, my mouth is bleeding, because to me, I'm dying of thirst, right? And so after, whatever it was, 2 months, and I finally got to take that drink of water. That water hitting my mouth and it was incredible. That one thing, it's like seared into my memory. Like, even taking a drink of water now, I still just like my mouth almost salivates thinking about it. And it's just like those little things, and we just take so much for granted, and all of them are just pretty incredible.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I forgot about self-storage at this point, but that's I'm happy you're back with us.
Thank you.
Me too. What an experience. Okay, so we find ourselves here then, I guess, talking about this because you and your company are proposing to shift the usage of 55 and Beacon Light. There's a plot to the northwest, right? Northwest, opposite, obviously, the gas station, that right now pretty much has nothing on it.
Yes.
And you guys are looking to install one of the luxury-style storage facilities.
Yes. So it's multi. So we're doing, like, we have one part of it will have that storage. The other part is going to have more of like small retail and different things, like we have just down here on 55, just south, right where that coffee shop is, right? So those little
with provisions, supply, provisions, barber, and coffee and supplies.
Exactly. So things, so more like that on the rest of it. So we're doing, it's kind of more of a mixed use.
I had no idea there was a proposal for, small retail and commercial stuff.
Yeah. So I think it was on the map that you can, if you want to pop that up and show it. But storage part and how we're doing it is based upon two things. So I look at the property, right? My house does. I look down at the property. I have always wanted to, in this area, right? I live here. For my entire life. And I love this area. And this is a very.
If you look down at this property, that means you're up on a hill, which means you got a great view.
Yeah.
God bless you, sir. I'm sure you love it. I'm sure you love the area.
I'm obsessed. It's weird. My wife laughs at me because I'm obsessed with Idaho. I don't, I've lived here my whole life, and you'd think that I'd get bored or whatnot, but I don't. I like this place. To me, is literally everything.
I spoke to a dear friend of mine back in California, and he right before COVID hit in February 2020, he moved his family from the town we were living in, which is Danville, to Germany. And his daughter, who's wonderful, I worked with her. She was one of my students. She just wasn't. She wasn't jiving. Yeah. It was not. She was a junior in high school. It was not going well. And Danville has its problems. There's an enormous amount of wealth in the community. My family and I lived in this very, very small little house that we bought in 2012. So it was like we barely got in, and then it was like we couldn't upgrade. We couldn't do anything. It was like we couldn't buy it again to save our lives. But so he was like, look, this is just, my daughter is not best served here. And he had done time in Germany, not done time, but he had lived in Germany growing up, and his wife also spoke German. So they moved to Germany, and then they got locked down, which was crazy because Germany's lockdown was way more extreme. So his plan for his family was like, look, we're going to take 2 kids, daughter and son, take them to Germany. They're going to get German immersion. They're going to get this international
and then they're stuck in a house for an apartment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So now they can't socialize. They're trying to learn German from like the grandmother who's also stuck in the house with them. And the German flat they were in was not like their big house with this big backyard. They were literally stuck in this apartment, and it did have a balcony, which was great. But just this horrible experience. Anyway, so they recently came back right as we were moving up to Idaho. We moved up here in January. Yeah. And we had I wouldn't say a similar kind of exit, but it was the community. We were not best served there. My family was not thriving there, and it was abundantly. I had a couple friends who had moved up here. One in particular, my dear friend Mike, and he and his family had moved up, and they were like, "Look, this place is great." And I had never been here. So I literally flew up November, right before Thanksgiving of 2021, was here for 2 days, purchased a house, and flew home. And 6 weeks later, we were in a moving van, coming up here. But speak with my friend, and he said, how is it going? Because the initial months were, obviously we moved in January, so we couldn't get out as much. Yeah. Even though I think it's gorgeous in the snow. I thought it was unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful out right now.
Right. And he was like, how are the boys transitioning? How's your wife transitioning? And I told him last night, I was like, it is an absolute dream to be here. And look, every place has its problems. And obviously we're sitting here talking about a community, conflict or whatever you want to call it. But nowhere is perfect, but this place is as close to perfect as I could imagine. I agree. Being engaged with the people here, hearing what their priorities are, understanding where we came from is just going down. Like it is. If I were to go into the nuances of what the community is going through, it's almost like this isn't possible, but it is. I mean, it's kind of going down in flames. So to your point, I love it here.
Love it.
I haven't even been here for a full year yet.
It's amazing.
I try to refrain from singing the praises too heavily to people back home because I'm like, hey, everybody be cool. Like if you really enjoy the crazy back home, then, stay in the crazy.
And, people get very upset around here, I think, a lot about change. And, I think that a lot of the time it's actually the people that are the newest here that are most upset about change. And, some of the people or locals are like, what are you? You're either part of that change or you can. And I'm like, no, I get it. I get why they're upset because they love it like we do. Right. And I'm like, I love that people are so involved in the community. I love that people care about this stuff. The worst thing to have is people that are like, I don't care at all. Right. And the people that move here, they feel like what you just said. This is home. And that is so awesome because I think that that's what makes the community great It's the fact that people really do care. There's not a neighbor that I have that I would not, at any point in time, for any reason ever, go run to their house if I had anything in need, and I know in a second, it wouldn't even matter what it was. They're there.
Right.
Right?
But here's the thing. All right, and I have a friend. He actually reached out to me. Again, to your point, engagement. I did a podcast about a building that was going up in downtown, and he reached out to me. And literally, first time I'm on the phone with this guy, he sends me a message on a direct message on Facebook, and it's literally just a phone number. I'm like, what do I do? Right. So I was like, hello?
I guess this is my cue.
Right, exactly. So I end up talking to him for almost an hour and a half, and he just unloads this incredible history of Eagle and Idaho and super engagement. But what struck me really intensely after that conversation is, yes, people move here and love it when they move here. Like, I remember coming to see Dry Creek, like, this is unbelievable. And seeing the Longhorns across the freeway and all of everything here.
Yeah.
But what struck me after getting off the phone was that it's kind of like, okay, look, you like a snapshot in time of what this place is. And you, Matt, were wholly unaware of the path this community and state was on before you even stepped foot here. And he went back, he was telling me about Eagle in the 80s and how it was like basically like a giant chicken farm.
Yes.
And, a little exaggerated, but it was like Nancy Miller was on the town
chicken
council.
Fire.
Yes.
It's like,
Right. And he was actually telling me about the different fire departments and how around there was like chicken coops and it killed me because I actually went and looked at a small studio space that I wanted to get a podcast area set up in, and I had to start working out of the home for a number of reasons. But I was like, these are really low ceilings, man. He's like, oh, yeah, it used to be a chicken coop. And this was, 5 months ago. Yeah. I had and all of a sudden it's like, oh, my God, you're serious. There used to be chicken coops around here in the 80s everywhere. And how a couple people on the town council in the late 80s really looked at Eagle and they're like, okay, look, there's an opportunity to make this area a different area, right? To make it unique. And they set it on a path to accomplish that. Enter Matt randomly in 2020 looking around like, gosh, isn't this place so great? And yes, it is great. But I think the thing that people miss when they move here, myself included, is that, look, man, we were going, like there was momentum here decades ago.
Long time ago.
Like there were plans in place. There are people that were heavily invested, multi-generations, and you are showing up in a snapshot and saying, hey, everybody stop. Yeah. And again, one of the things he pointed out to me as well, he said, look, when Californians move here, a lot of them have some kind of money backing. Yes. And he's like, this is not a criticism of you, Matt. He was like, I don't know. Yeah. And at the time, he knew nothing about me, and I didn't take it as criticism. But he said, this is not a criticism of you, but when people sell their houses in California, even in not great areas, a house could be $1 million easily. So you sell that $1 million house and you move up here and you're like, oh, like a $600,000 house. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. I mean, all of the houses in Eagle that I went and saw in Legacy and all of the communities, like these are unbelievable houses and super affordable. So people move up here with a certain amount of money. The pressures to make ends meet are not immediate. Yep. I have a friend right now. He was working in construction. His wife was working for a car dealership, and they moved up here. And they're like, well, look, we have a couple of years until we really iron things out.
Same. My last house, sold it to a guy came up from Southern California. I asked, what do you do? And he's like, oh, well, I did this and this and this. I'm like, oh, so you got a job here? Nope. He's like, we love it here. We got the house. We'll figure it out. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like,
wow.
Holy cow.
So, and again, because of that, I think the questions that Californians, or at least some Californians ask, and myself included, are not the same that locals who have been here for 10 or 20 years are asking, which is like, where's the economic mobility coming from? How do we get jobs for our children? All of these things. Yeah. Speaking with a local businesswoman just a couple weeks ago, Hope Blooms Flowers. Love that store. Yeah. Right down next to Rib Shack. Yep. It's fantastic. She was like, look, we love this area, but we outgrew this space decades ago. And I went in and I met her and I saw her space and I was like, wow, you're right. And incredible business, incredible things she's selling. I loved it. I took flowers home for my wife. She was absolutely over the moon. Never had a flower bouquet like this. Yeah. We keep sprucing it up. But the point is, it's difficult for people who have just moved here and see this snapshot to understand the decade-long history of development, the path that the people put us on years ago, rightfully so. And again, said to me, one of the last things, he's like, Eagle cannot continue existing as a bedroom community.
Oh.
We need commercial and retail. We need to draw
It's the
people.
biggest problem we have here.
Right.
And when you look at Eagle, when I was a teenager and growing up, and then when we came back and got married, it was like me and my wife, our dream was to make enough money that we could live in Eagle. And that was for an Idaho boy, you made it, right? Like, I mean, we're not being from other places where wealth is just so abundant. To us, Eagle was it, right? That was Hollywood Hills. That was you know what I mean? It was just crazy. It was something that, everybody thought differently about it, right? And people worked really hard to try to make it an area that, had not an esteem of wealth or anything else like that, but had this it's a bedroom community that's beautiful. It's still kind of localized, right? Things like that. And that worked really, really good when Eagle was growing, but it had no major population. The things that happened, though, was people want to live in Eagle. And so when people want to live in Eagle, there's lots of land. We have lots of ability to build homes, but Eagle was never designed ever to hold, you're talking about a city that has one, we have Albertsons and one McDonald's. We have virtually, up until the T-Sheets area, right? And then right down a little further there where you have Wendy's, right? There were nothing. And that is all full and taken, right? Immediately. That's it. So the idea becomes here is we have to have basic infrastructure for citizens that are moving here. People are moving here. That won't stop. Why? Because it's amazing, right? And
right. I think it's only accelerating because you're
it is. It's accelerating.
You had people moving here pre-pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, you had those people, reach out back home. Are like, why don't you move here? It's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Those people move here, and now it was like, so you had the pioneers, from other states in the teens, and then
it just
pandemic hit, and now you have multi-generation because the parents are seeing all of their kids move. I mean, I have several instances where you have many children from one family moving to this area, and now the grandparents are coming because they want to be close to their grandchildren. You have all of this wave of just family after family, and some people get here and it's not their cup of tea. But the majority, right.
Because they're moving here and two, like how I see it is they're moving here for the right reasons. That's why I love, one of the best things about this community is, and the valley as a whole, for the vast majority of people that move here, they're moving here for the right reasons.
Right.
It's about community. It's about family. It's about being with people that are good people, right? Want to help. That's the reasons I want people to move here. And for the most part, 9 times out of 10, that's who we get. Right. We get great people. And that is something that I think not only is good, it should be celebrated, right? And I understand there's always growing pains, things like that. But even if you took out spikes or levels, Eagle's projected to double in literally the next few years. The amount of development that has happened in the last 5 years is mind-blowing. And then what's coming is shocking, right? You have the connection of 16 to 55. You're talking literally 10,000 homes, right?
And that's west from Avamore, correct?
That's correct. They're building the overpass, right? You have all of the more dense housing around 16, which all that was changed. All of it sold to developers. All the northern Beacon Light area after you get from Linder and south, all homes, right? Eagle will double in literally the next 3-4 years. But we do not have infrastructure that is doubling. In fact, it today is behind. And when working with the city of Eagle and when working with, everybody that lives in it, it's this balancing act. It's like, how do we do this? Okay. Because if we don't keep up, the existing infrastructure erodes. Then nobody's happy. I can't get food. Everything's gone. I'm sitting in lines. I don't have access to basic services.
Right.
Then the people that live here anyways are ticked. Right. So it's like we have to keep up, but Eagle has been very anti, right? Commercial. It was viewed as basically just a bedroom community that was made simply for housing, right? That once again works when you don't have a lot of people. The amount of people today, it no longer works for. Right. It literally, we cannot sustain the people we have today. The people that are coming, we're in big trouble. And the city knows and understands this. This is the big debates and the things that people are looking at Avamore when we're dealing with, okay, because you have, most people don't understand the vast majority of Eagle is in the foothills. So Eagle goes clear north. Like, it's huge how far Eagle goes north. That is within the Foothills District. So the vast majority of land, and which will be the future development, and these massive neighborhoods and everything else, are in an area that is very controlled. This is in the Foothills District, right? They need to protect the ecosystems. They need to protect that community. We do not want to destroy our foothills. We do not want to end up like these other places where you look out and the only thing you just see is mass houses covering all the hills. Nobody wants that, right? We don't want that. Eagle doesn't want that. That's not their plan. We want to have and go back and have a nice, beautiful viewing community. Well, what that means, though, is you don't want light pollution. You don't want things like that. Commercial can't go there. So how they have it designated right now is in the Foothills District. You can't put commercial. Okay, that's fine. What does that mean then? That means you have the vast majority of this city that is in a location where commercial can't even go.
Right.
Then you have all of those people that have to access commercial utilities. They all have to flow back into Eagle, and you have a Albertsons that is located in between 2-3 traffic stops. That the traffic is set up down there basically like it was when we had 10,000 people, right? It's just not sustainable. So I understand this tug and pull. The problem is growth isn't going anywhere, right? And it's not that growth is coming, it's already here. And the ones that's coming makes it unsustainable. So the city is really, and two, I think the city's doing a great job because they have the hardest thing in the world. You want people that are absolutist, no growth. Well, the problem if you're that way and you say, I don't want growth, you're basically saying, I want to be like in a communist regime where I tell landowners they can't do what they want with their land.
Right.
That doesn't work.
The land rights here are far different than the land rights in California.
Yes.
Like if you wanted to put up, I don't know, just a pergola or like a deck in California, you had to get, everyone signing on, even if you didn't live in an HOA.
We do not want to be like that. We want to have property rights. So to tell somebody that has a farmer that has land, they have 100 acres, and you want to tell that farmer, who's a 5th generation farmer here, we don't want you to do anything with your land because we enjoy seeing horses or we enjoy the fields. And you think, so you're going to force him labor and his land rights because of something you want. That doesn't work, right? And I'm very, very against that. But I am very pro that we need to do this right. And two, there are certain places for certain things. I do not want to end up like Texas, for example, where you're in like Houston and you can just build anything anywhere.
Right.
And then it gets weird and things don't look good. No, we want to keep that. So this is a balancing act the city has to play, and very, very powerful emotions, right? So I personally think the city's doing a good job, and they don't do a good job on everything because nobody does, and we can't hold people to that standard. But what Eagle is dealing with is unlike any other city that we have here. And when you look at, I think Mayor Pierce is doing a great job. And he's trying, like others I just don't think did, to juggle all of this. Now, the problem is you can't make everybody happy, right? You can't make me happy. You can't make any of these because we all have different wants and needs, and we all have different things that are important to us, and there are gives and takes. And Eagle has big gives and takes. Okay, I don't want. I may be okay with certain amount of growth, but I don't want this much growth, or I'm okay with certain times of commercial, but I don't want this type. And because we are a close-knit community, everybody is very vocal on their opinion, which is great, right? But people get very, very upset. And the thing that you have to work on, I think residents also too need to remember, is that, everybody's trying to do the best. And I think the fact that we are so involved in the community has stopped Eagle from doing some bad things. I think it's protect us, and I think that's great, right? And I think that's what makes Eagle wonderful. The residents care, the city cares, we're all vocal, everybody comes in. I mean, most developers would never get on a podcast talk. They don't want to talk with the community, right? They don't, that's not thing. It's the community is their enemy. I'm not a developer. I'm doing a development, right, in my backyard. But I am not a developer. And my community matters to me, and we want to work with people. Because for me, I'm trying to build the best product in an area which I live, I use, my kids are right here, right? And that I'm never leaving. This is home.
Right.
And that's really, really important to me. And the fact that people here, I would like it if a developer did ask and say, what is your opinions? What are your thoughts, right? I think that's just a good, healthy way to do it. And Eagle has a lot of that. And that's great. But it's this balancing act that everybody's dealing with, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard moving forward because we're not all going to get what we want. That doesn't exist, right? And there's a lot of things about growth that me as a local, yeah, it stinks. It's like I've got to deal with the millions of people on the Boise River, floating the Boise River in the summer, which that didn't happen when I was a kid, right? We had rope swings all over there, and nothing. We'd go float the river, and there'd be other people, but nothing like it is now. I mean,
I did it this summer. Obviously, it's like rite of passage. You got to
go do it. 100%.
So I grew up. My grandmother lived in Sacramento, and so I would go up there. And there's the Russian River and Lake Natomas. I was on the rowing team in college, and we race on Lake Natomas, and we would do a river float. Right, I remember going with my grandparents, and then when I was in college, I went with my sister, and there were kind of exactly what you have on the Boise River, which is shuttles, and you rent the rafts, and you do the whole bit. But the experience there, the experience in California compared to the experience here on the Boise River, it was like you do it in California, you're floating by like crack houses.
Yeah.
There's trash everywhere. There are people having a good time, but excessively so.
Yes.
Like beer cans everywhere.
Yep.
It is and it is not. It's just not what you see here, which is a
very
totally respectful.
Yes.
You have families, you have people nice.
Yes.
We're bumping into people on the Boise River, and I got my boys in the boat, and people are just making jokes with them, pushing them off, not hammered, like out of their minds,
exactly.
And it was just a little part of me died going down the Boise River. It was like, oh my God, this is so great, and other people are going to hear about how great this is.
Yeah.
And keep it coming. So again, I to your point, I myself have fallen prey to seeing how great this is and wanting. I think at least for me, it's a response to, oh man, I know what it could become.
Yeah.
And because of that,
that scares all of us. That scares me.
Terrifies everyone.
Everyone.
But the answer to that is not denying that it's already changing.
Yes.
The answer to that, in my opinion, is okay. Look. It needs to change. It needs to change today.
It's how.
Right?
How's it going to change?
Right. And
exactly.
For instance, again, my friend Mark was saying, like, look, Costco, we only have, I think he said like 6 Costcos in all of Idaho. It was like, we have, Boise, we have one down in Meridian, we have a couple, we're lucky to have them in the area. But people don't realize that the services that we want to have, we want our children to have, we want the community to have, are not going to be able to exist if everything stays the exact same. Now, if you're retiring,
I grew up in a town. Yeah. You do not want to be. I didn't grow up in a town. I grew up here. I'm from a town that didn't grow, and you know what does grow in towns that don't grow? Crime, drugs. You do not want this to be a small town that is stagnant. That means your kids leave. You have no future. When you get older, there's no good options for you. That is not something we want. And Boise has done an incredible job of going through explosive growth, but at the same time keeping it so amazing. Think about all the cities. Think about Denver. You ever been to Denver? Denver is not like Boise, right? And you look at these other cities, which are great, and they're awesome, but it goes to show what we've done so far in Boise. It's very unique. And I think that's something to be celebrated because the growth isn't going. So the question is, how is it coming out? And as of right now, in aggregate, it's really good.
Right.
Really good. The right people, right? The right things we want to see. Everybody wants utilities. Everybody wants, okay, we want a water park. And two, you need this stuff because if you don't have it and you have population growth, then you have problems. You have trouble. Now, kids don't have anything to do. Now you have issues, right? And then as that growth comes and then people stop growing because there's no infrastructure, you have depreciating home values. And none of that you want. If you don't have infrastructure, you don't have increase in home values. It doesn't work.
So we were talking before we went on about the larger plan. And again, we will get to this. We will
but this is the thing that a lot of people misunderstand, even with our plan. Like for ours, we had to change the overall road from Brookside to connect to Beacon Light, right? And that's the thing that everyone we've talked to has all the problem with, okay? And then they have one of the biggest problems is they say, this is not how this area is. It's not what it's supposed to be. This isn't supposed to be some kind of commercial, right? This is supposed to be farm, and it's supposed to be, and that's actually not true at all. So first of all, I didn't have a choice in Brookside. I'm being forced to do that.
And you're saying there's a road going from Brookside south all the way
goes
down to
255, and then and they're making us change it to Beacon. If we don't do it, the city will do it. If anybody touches that property, it will not be done without changing Brookside. First thing we said when we were looking at the property. The reason why we went and bought this property is this is a corridor, when you're looking at Brookside, that is a transitionary corridor. And
okay, so and what we're looking up here is 55. We have Dry Creek on the right? That's that little road jutting out. And then at the very bottom of that blue, we have that's Beacon going over the left.
That's
so
correct.
your proposed storage facility would be right at the very bottom.
It's that
of
blue part right there.
But just to give you perspective, from that bottom over to Dry Creek, that's the whole road. So this mass of blue is already slotted. This is the overall plan for this area that was developed without you. Nobody,
years ago.
Nobody asked. They're like, "Hey, AJ, what do you think about this?" So this has already been plotted. Like all of the cows, all of the horses, all of that stuff. That's all in the blue. That's all already going away.
That's correct. It is designed for and what they want to see. Like they talk about office, retail. They want community centers. They want integrated with residential. So this is a mixed use area for commercial. Okay. There's already homes here, but how the city views it is this. We have mass communities, including Dry Creek and Avamore, that are coming in. We will, you're going to put 10,000 homes in Avamore alone. Well, where are these people going to get services?
Right.
Where are they going? And this is the linking area. So this is where they've talked about, and what their plan is to design is this is the linking area from what would be considered maybe South Eagle or Main Eagle to the whole northern section. And there has to be a linking infrastructure there.
It can't just be, houses after houses after houses.
It just can't be continuous houses, because then where do people go? If you go south, that's the problem. Everybody's like, south. Where? There is no land, right? It's like, where are they going to build all this? It doesn't exist.
Right.
So Eagle has this problem, and what they've done is they said high density or commercial, pretty much we're looking at 16 and 55. They want to keep it along the highways. They want to keep it along the major paths that people are going on. That's the whole idea. That way they can keep traffic, right, doing the right thing, going in the right places, and the right road. 55 is not some quiet country road. That's not it, right? 55, when you look at, they're talking, 55 is going to have like 50,000 cars a day going on it. That's their projections. It's crazy. It's a highway, right? I mean, this thing is going to be huge. You're going to have a 4-lane big thing going. This is the connectivity to all north. So anyone that lives on 55 that thinks either change isn't coming or that it's going to be the state, that's not state's plan, that's not Eagle's plan, that's not people's plan. They're moving there, and this stuff's going to change. And that was one of the reasons why we actually bought the property here and began to look at it, because it was like, okay, this has changed. This is what's coming in. I'd rather at least be part of it and have some say and work here within it than not. So yeah, It's not us saying we're doing this.
Right. And again, just to be clear, in the paragraph in the top right, it says Brookside Planning Area is designated for mixed use combining residential, office, limited retail within a community center. So again, emphasizing community center as designated as a foothill planning area. So again, transitioning and buffering to the areas immediately to the west, planning areas, blah, blah, blah. And again, this is all available on the Eagle website.
Yes.
So that's the overall plan, and you guys are functioning within that plan and getting specifically to your development. So this is that bottom right corner that we're looking at now. This is the bottom corner of that blue area, and this is where 55 goes from 2 lanes down to 1. It's the gas station. So this is a
right where Brookside comes out right there into 55. This is a rough area, and 2, this is one of the most dangerous areas in all of Eagle. As far as car crashes go, as far as, we've had 2 devastating in just the last 6 months due to cars and people on this area. This is a major, major issue for ACHD and the city of Eagle when it comes to public safety. Frankly, Brookside coming out onto 55 right out of corner at a blind spot, right when you're going from however many lanes down to 2, it's a disaster for a reason. You've got this huge road where all these cars are going down, speeding. It goes around a hill. You literally can't see the stoplight. You can't see what's happening at all. Right. Then you have a residential road that runs right into it, right when all the cars are coming down and changing lanes into 2 ways. This was a big, big issue for ACHD and the city of Eagle. And it was one that we have to play within their rules. So even the road, and you can see on the layout here, we didn't put the road there.
Right.
No, we said, well, maybe we could do this, or maybe we could run it back up alongside 55. They sent it to us, and I said, that's where your road's going. We said, okay. And by the way, too, AJ, you're paying for it. That's the price of using this land. Man,
Mary May, she's not messing around.
It's like, this is what's happening, and this is what you're doing. And we just said, okay, right? We're just working in that realm. And once again, too, if we don't do it, the city's doing it.
Right. Now, obviously one of the primary things when I was speaking with people and said, hey, I'm fortunate enough, I'm going to speak with AJ. Yeah. I'm like, what are the issues you have? Overwhelmingly, people are saying, hey, look, having trailers and stuff pull out onto 55 or pull out and immediately go on Beacon and blah, blah, that's going to be a problem.
Yes.
And drawing traffic there as well. But again, the map as I'm looking at it, as it is laid out, has your facility coming onto the road, which is not Beacon, and then that road going down and eventually
we do not access Beacon or 55. Right. Everything has to go up and drive clear off it and come over to it. We have no access points over there whatsoever. And 2, one of the big things that you need to realize, the valley is bringing all the valley. You're talking Caldwell, you're talking everywhere. They're bringing trailers, everything else like that through this corridor. So they're coming through Eagle. Anybody that has been on State Street and Eagle Road knows that on a Friday afternoon, anytime in the summer, it's a nightmare. My offices are down across from T-Sheets. You have those little medical, most of them are medical. And then you have our offices down there kind of by the river, right? When I go to turn out, this is almost to the light at T-Sheets. On Friday afternoon, holidays, anything, we have traffic all the way back there. And what's it almost all of? You're talking mobile homes, you're talking trailers, right? It's just this area down through Eagle and everything else like that, they congest. Well, with this, now they can put all those items there. Then when they go use them, all they do is they take them to the light. In fact, they could take it up to the light for Dry Creek and pull on a light, get a light, and then go up 55 from there.
Oh, because they don't have to go south once they leave your facility. They can go north.
That's correct.
And they could go up
to the light. They have two
Brookside.
different lights to choose. Yep.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
It's seriously, like, as far as traffic goes, it's great. The other thing that people have to realize is this is the least impact of any commercial asset we could think of. So if you look at all commercial assets, self-storage is the lowest impact.
And when you say impact, what does that mean?
People coming in and going out. We took all our facilities, even our biggest ones. You're talking about a handful of people a day. That's it. If you took retail, you're talking hundreds, right? If you take food and retail, you're talking thousands a day. Okay. This is not only a fraction, it's nothing compared to any other commercial asset. This isn't a place where we're building up big offices and all of a sudden you have all these people that are coming in, right? Storage is the lowest impact per square foot on a community than pretty much anything else you can build.
So this corner is going to be developed with or without.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
And what you're saying is you put in a Quickie Mart, you put in a brewery, you put in anything.
Taco Bell, you put in anything else like that.
The traffic for that would be significantly greater than this development.
That's a destination. We're not a destination. So let's say here I have 600 spots. Okay. Out of that 600 spots, on a month-to-month basis, less than 10% of all of them would ever be used. That's a month. So you're talking about, if you have 300 spots, you may have 30 that are being actively used over a month period of time.
Okay, now let's be really clear on this point, because this is actually very interesting. You guys already own RV storage.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you have actual data that even in the summer months, fewer than 10% of the gross capacity is coming and going on a monthly basis?
So we have 10% that are utilizers, meaning that they really use. So if you take our one in Meridian, which we have boat, RV, everything like that,
great.
On average, we're seeing like 3 to 5 people a day. There's 900 units.
Wow. Okay, so
now, and think about this. In the summer is actually the lowest, one of the lowest RVs. Like RVs is one of our lowest utilization because of this. RVs leave. So in the summer, our vacancy rates on RVs, right, skyrocket. Why? Because the RVs leave. They're not coming in and out. They don't go in and out every day. That's not how it works. They park them for the winter. They take them out for the summer.
And then they just store them on their property or wherever else.
Or they take them out camping. They go, like, it's gone. They're gone for long, long periods of time. And we've never seen with our RV spaces ever. It's like, oh, I'm taking it out for the afternoon and I'm coming back. That's not how it works. So they are actually the lowest impact. Like if you have contractors, things like that, we're going to see a much higher utilization. They're going to come in every day. They're going to get stuff, right? They're going to go out. Boat, RVs, they don't. In fact, I don't know how many of the spots that we have on boat and RVs, they haven't even been there in 9 months. Don't even show up.
Gotcha.
Ever. So this is really, really low utilization. But this is the most important part that I think people have a problem with, because that is unarguable, the utilization. We've showed it in the docs. We've shown it to the city, right? Everything. You can map it out. We can track it. That much land being used on housing, on commercial, or anything else, the impact is astronomically bigger on traffic, on utilities, on everything to the city. And two, with that, you also have to understand, we could probably get a lot more profitable if we did other things. If we went up, if we concentrated, right, things like that. That's just not what I do. So I'm not an office guy. If we sold it to office people, things like that, that's what it would be.
And to that point, this is actually what you're proposing the facilities look like.
We want them to look like barns. So when people go by, and we do this luxury storage, and this is a partner in a company that I own, one that he built right here. So we've been to him, we've worked on him with them, and we wanted something, and I wanted something. I live here. I'm worried about light pollution. Why? Because I want to see the stars.
Sure.
And I'm worried about, look, nothing will be shown. Boat and RVs you will never see from the road. We cannot do that. So everything is enclosed. When you drive by, it will not look like a storage facility. So the city won't even let us do that, okay? So there's misconceptions that you're going to see a lot. Like you have this one that's illegally running out here where the guys are parking.
Okay, so that's what somebody already brought up.
No, they're that's totally illegal.
Okay, so all of those are like the boat, the little, Razor, Polaris that's out there for sale. That's absolutely illegal.
Absolutely illegal. It's not zoned for it. They don't have the license for it. Nothing. They can't do it. So another funny thing we always laugh at, we're trying to do this right. Yet we have people that are operating illegally. Maybe we should just do that. Just kidding. We would never do that. But ours doesn't, and I think that gives us a bad name. But it's like that's not what we're talking about here. You will never see the boats and RVs. You will see from the road what looks like we're building, buildings. The front part will look more like an office. And then you will look what looks like barns, right? And these barn imagery, which we have when you drive by, there is no visualization to inside. So the city and everyone has made it very clear. We have no open units, no open parking, no open anything. You can't see and two, you can't even see inside it. So first of all, even if you're inside it, you can't see things because everything's closed off. Well, this is climate controlled, right? So a huge portion of it's climate controlled. But even on the outside, we're building like fortress style. So like you would see like barns, but you wouldn't see inside the storage facility. Now, that's because that's the kind of operator we are and what we do. Other ones just try to cut cost, right? And they're trying to drive. So they're going to put metal things, or they're going to try. We're not doing that. We're building it nice. We're going to charge nice prices for it because we're going to put a nice thing in a nice community.
Right.
That's the idea for residents. So a lot of misconceptions on storage utilization, what it'll look like, and what the overall effect will be. Now, if we get this rezoned and we want to do like the comp plan for mixed use, okay, guess if we don't want storage, we could always change it all to that. And then you're doing retail, we're doing office space, we're going to get fast food in there, something that we can get a higher per price square foot per lot. But it's, and I think when people think through that, they realize if I want how the land, right, like we talked about, the growth is coming. So it's how we want it. Especially in this corner, to me, I want really low impact and everything because it's already a nightmare, right? And the ACHD, we're working with them. We want connectivity roads across. So like we're building a green belt, right? We're building green spaces. We're trying to get like crosswalks over. We want them to work with us as we're paying for them paying to do this, our road system, and we're building a green belt path, everything else over there, which we're going to make like a preserve, kind of all through where that Dry Creek part is. But when you look at that area, we want the city, we want ACHD, we want everybody to be working with us to try to fix that intersection area. It is a really, really big problem. And it's not good for me living here. It's not good for business, and it's not good for any residents or people passing through.
Right. If we could back up just a second, you just mentioned, you're like, look, if we take it as it is, right, with mixed use or something, we could build these other things. You're attempting to get a shifting in zoning, correct?
Yeah, to the mixed use, which they're actually okay with.
Okay, so what is it zoned for right now? Like if you raise your hand, you're like, hey, I would like to build something here. I own this land.
Yes.
What can I build? What could you build today without shifting this to something like this?
So with the city's plans, what they're making us do, not much. Hence the reason why they have to change the zoning.
Okay.
So like, let's say that it's right now RUT, which is just rural urban transit. It's made for homes.
So
right?
the city has a plan, but they acknowledge within their plan they need to change the zoning on a case-by-case basis to very carefully
get their plan.
Organize this. So their plan was never to stay the zoning that they currently have. Their plan is literally like, we're going to take applications and we're going to rezone on a project-by-project basis so we can get the overall picture we want. Instead of just changing the zoning and then saying carte blanche, build whatever you want, it is now mixed-use commercial, have at it, people. They're saying, no.
Correct.
You're going to have to apply and we're going to have to approve this. And we're going to take input from the community. But their plan is to go ahead and do that. Their plan is actually to change it on an ongoing basis.
Even if you look at the map, you have all those houses that drain out onto 55 right there, right? Mm-hmm. They do not want that. They want that to be changed. They want it to be gone. And two, anyone that builds it, so we have to build access points to run roads all the way north of Dry Creek. So if you look at our map, you can actually see on the road, we have another road right up north of the facility, and a lot of people miss this, that's a stub road. That's going through the rest of our property. That's taking up land right there. That's going alongside Dry Creek. They're making us do that. Why? Because they're going to run that all the way north. And so all those houses that drain out, they're going to cut off all access. If anyone buys it, you will never be able to do anything with it unless you do this. Cut off access to 55, pipe it to that road, and then drain out.
Because I've actually, obviously I live here, right? And so I drive up 55. And when you have people stopping to go in or people trying to come out, you have people blowing down 55, you don't even have to be speeding. You're going 55 miles an hour and somebody's trying to pull out of a private driveway. And a lot of the driveways are gravel. And you're like, dude, if this guy's wheels spin out, like this is going to be a problem.
Yes, exactly. So they're trying to end all of that, which then would connect that whole thing all the way up the road of 55 to the bigger parcel, which is already owned by developers that are going to be doing commercial. Another thing people think, they're like, oh, you're trying to do something nobody's doing. The vast majority of all the land owned up here is by commercial developers that are getting ready to do commercial. And that's 100 and something acres, right? You're talking mine's 20. So they're trying to figure out how do we connect those two big things that are coming. So I understand from residents, and it's hard for me too, because I'm like, they're like, you're trying to change our area. I'm like, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm working within the city's comp plans, what they're doing, right? And the change is here, meaning the land's already owned. The vast majority of all the land through here right now is owned by commercial developers that have huge plans for big things that they're doing. But a lot of the residents, they don't even know. They don't know that what the city's trying to do. They don't understand. And I think it's either a lack of, we just get so comfortable seeing what's already there.
Right.
We accept that as what it is or is supposed to be. But we got to work within the realms of the city, the plans, the developers. And we need to do this as residents, right? And so when we were planning ours, that was the foremost thing. Residents told us, we don't want to be looking at a storage facility, right? Understand that completely. We want to fit this in, and we're taking directly what we were told by the residents. We want this to fit in with the surrounding areas, okay? Well, Eagle is an equestrian place. Beacon Light is an equestrian road, right? So we thought we're going to do these amazing looking like barn things for the storage that then you wouldn't see.
Yeah, this rendering is actually really impressive.
Awesome?
It's hard to understand.
That's not a rendering. That's real.
How do you mean?
That's a real storage facility currently existing. My one of the partners in my company it's already built this.
I thought this was a CGI. This actually exists. You guys are building in the likeness of this.
Yes, I have the plans.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's
very nice. That's real. That's not CGI rendered. I was just at these 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, cool.
Fantastic. Huh? Yeah, very, very nice. So are those barn doors actually functioning or are those cosmetic?
No, they're cosmetic.
That's okay.
Isn't that cool?
All right, you got me. That's a beautiful building.
Yeah. But so when we looked at it, we took that feedback, right? You got windows, and we said, okay, we recognize what we're wanting. We want to solve traffic issues, but also we want not just for ACHD in the city, we also want to solve traffic issues for the citizens. We need to make where people are coming in and out off, get it away from the road. We need to have it down there. We need to allow certain types of access points the city's making us. But the citizens, when we're looking at people that live in this area, including me, how it looks and feels is very important. And that's where we stress, like, growth is coming. So let's think about how this growth plays into our community right now. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pull this in. I want low impact, right? We want something that is low light impact, low traffic impact, and frankly, low visual impact, right? We don't want towers. I don't want a McDonald's. I don't want, right? And maybe other people do, everything else like that. I'm talking personally here. I just don't want a McDonald's on the corner. I don't want, I want to keep it within the nature and the feel of where we live. And we thought that these barns, it pulls that off perfectly. So we can still get low impact, low utilization. We can give, which, by the way, we haven't even touched on this, demand here for this product type is astronomical. So we have 40 people that currently live in this northern area. They drive and are renting from me all the way down close to the boulevard in Nampa. So, we have an access problem for citizens here. This is meant to serve us. Our facility that we're building, our target market is a 3-mile radius. That's who we're serving. So it's literally the people that live here, right? And when we look at that, as long as we feel that it can really blend in well with the community, we have an overall project that functionally works, right? So it's not going to be something that doesn't generate income and then they're dilapidated or vacant buildings that everybody's like, there's just vacant signs up here. Nobody goes to this corner, right? Nobody does it. We don't want anything like that. I don't want fast food. And we thought, okay, this is high demand for this area, but we think we can build this right in the community, right? And we can make this look, once again, something already exists that's done. We know how to do it. This isn't nothing great, nothing we do. We've already built luxury storage facilities. It's kind of our thing. And I think we can, do something that is really fitting to Eagle that hasn't been done before. The facilities that exist in Eagle are not like this. And they, I think that they don't fit with what residents, what we all feel is the look and feel. So, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to accomplish, working, through with the city. The road's the big main issue. Right. That's been the main issue from virtually everybody.
There was a gentleman on that I had an exchange with that was very critical of, and I didn't get a more in-depth explanation, but he was very critical of the Dry Creek Ranch community, saying, "Hey, look, you're essentially siphoning off all of this stuff from the surrounding areas. You're not technically an Eagle, right? So Eagle doesn't get the tax base from you guys, and." You come and use services, and then you drive home to Dry Creek.
We get nothing from it.
Right. And again, I would have liked to sit down with this guy, even just for a cup of coffee and understand it more. But it really struck me because that was the first time I had really recognized the people living in Eagle and say long-term residents and stuff have observed this community that keeps to itself and then pops in, grabs stuff, and does whatever, and leaves, right? And
then they're all paying for it.
And they're all paying for it. And then, again, for instance, the storage people, 40 residents here, 40 customers here that go all the way down to Nampa for storage. It's are the people in between here and Nampa best served by the 40 people coming to use the facility there, dropping it off and going home? And those 40 customers, are they best served by driving all that way, coming home? It's why...
That 40 too, you have to realize how ludicrous that is. You're talking 45 minutes. We never see that in our industry. That doesn't exist. Normally speaking, you're serving 80% plus of your population is in that 3 miles. So the fact that we have people out here that are driving all the way to Middleton and almost Karcher Road, that's shocking. That's so far.
And again, the idea that we come back to it, and I am a recent, person from California. I moved up here. I love it. But it is the gentleman that was criticizing Dry Creek Ranch. I had to take a step back and say, he kind of has a point. Yeah. We are getting the benefit of everyone else having an Albertsons in their backyard, right? Or having a storage facility. We are getting the benefit of all of these things. And there are lots of residents in Dry Creek that sit back and say, well, I really like the cows, right? I really like the horses. And by the way, I love the cows and horses, right?
Me too.
Like, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we get to evade development when we're drawing on services. And again, we're obviously just scratching the surface of the broader plan, but the idea that we could exist in this bubble in Dry Creek Ranch and nothing changes, everything stays the same, and the rest of the area has to pick up the tab for it. They have to get more crowding. They have to deal with problems with finding grocery stores like everyone else that lives next to
I
open
want to
space.
use this. I just don't want you to put it here. Right. I want you to put it over on somebody else so somebody else has to deal with it, right? And this is natural. I understand that feeling. Right. Trust me, I do. From everyone and everybody. I
and this is no criticism.
Yes,
to be very clear, this is something
Yeah.
that I've been trying to work out myself.
Yeah, because I grew up on Eagle Exit. Think about what has changed there, right? Like I hunted out there, and that was hard to see, right? As I went from being on the outskirts of town and I could hunt out my backyard to being the center of the universe, what was my house, right in the valley, Eagle Exit. But at the same time, it was a service problem, an issue. And I think Eagle residents, there is this little rift, I feel like, between Dry Creek and Avamore. And the rift is that you're talking about is we have to put all this in. So our land that's around us that's nice, that may be fields, we have to develop that out so you guys don't have to and you guys can come use it. And we're not getting the tax basis from it, right? And I think that's why the city is working with Avamore and they're really looking at this, how this doesn't work from a standpoint of you don't get to not be with
part
us.
Of the solution.
And, you can't hold 20% of the population and yet pay no taxes, but yet use 20% of all the services. Obviously, that simply doesn't financially even work. And these are the struggles that Eagle's going through, right? And I think one of the biggest problems on it is, frankly, everyone's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like that's what I've been coming to. Like, you're not wrong for liking the cows.
100%. No, you're not wrong. Everybody's right. And it's this, once again, it's this give and take that we have to do. And I think understanding that the give and take is going to happen no matter what. So then let's look at, once again, how it's done. If we're going to have things like storage facilities, if we're going to have things like Albertsons, if we're going to have condos, if we're going to have office space, if we're going to have what does this look like? How's it going to look? If this whole area is this transitory area from north and south that everything's meeting, traffic, commercial, residential, all of it, how's it going to look? Because that's the important thing. We want it to work for everybody, and we don't want it to be an eyesore. We don't want this to be an area. I mean, once again, I look down on this. This is really important to me, to you, to everybody. So let's all just work and participate and make sure that it's done right. And we're trying to do that. And that's what I tell to people, right? For us to create like the barns, things like that, even if we don't have to. So there's some arguments that we could pretty much legally just do it and they can't say no, things like that. But that's not what we're trying to do here.
Right.
And we would save a lot of money if we didn't make those things look like barns, stuff like that. But we are trying to work within the community. My employees live here. I live here. My kids go to school here. They play down here. My reputation's important to me, and my family is. And we like working with the community. And if developers are doing that, and the city's doing that, and the citizens are all doing that, we have a great outcome and a great continued community that Boise already is, right? And that's the whole point. It's not about forcing other people. It's about working together.
Right.
And I think that's really, really important.
Well, look, AJ, we've been chatting away. I know you got a full day. Thank you for coming and sharing the information.
Happy to be here.
Thank you for doing what you're doing as far as, trying to look out for the community. And again, you're a member, I'm a member. And it's not easy, right? And you have a lot of people, me in specific, that it's like, hey, when I moved here, I saw this, and And I kind of like to keep it that way. But again, understanding more of what you bring and what a lot of other people have brought to my attention. It's like, look, this is the plan. There's no getting away from this. This was the plan long before I moved here and long before you proposed this. This area is getting developed and attempting to do it in a way that enriches everyone visually and functionally and, as low an impact as possible. It seems to be the only option.
I agree.
Perfect.
Thanks, man.
Well, thank
Appreciate
you, sir.
it.
All right. Quick shout out to our sponsor, C Squared Social. C Squared Social is the leading expert in social media marketing and creative marketing. They have fantastic platforms. I have been a client of theirs for some time. I cannot recommend them highly enough. C Squared Social for all of your social media and creative marketing needs.